just a tiny bit late here, so I just thought I'd come online and say hi to everyone and see how everyone's doing. We have people in the chat room already, so just thought I'd say hello, and also want to give you an update. I'm here in the UK, as some people may know, and I'm here I just did a tour of the ancient sites with Maria Wheatley. We're going to release a short video of that sort of journey, which was quite fascinating, and went to a lot of ancient sites, stone circles, Stonehenge, etc., and really got the energies, which was amazing. That is a way to jumpstart your DNA, to give yourself an activation, as well as to bring your light to these various ley lines, and some of which are connected with what we call stargates, and there's a major war over the stargates on the planet right now. So this is very crucial, and Stonehenge is one of the sort of crucial places that we went, and I can tell you that was quite fascinating, intense energy, and we were there at night and got to really be close to the stones, etc. They do have guards, and they won't let you touch them. The only time you can go touch the stones is during the summer solstice, which is actually coming up on the 21st of June. And here is Sean. So I'm going to see if we can get him online here. Hi, Sean.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Actually, we're already online.
Nice. Okay.
So it's great to have you here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw I have a poster to identify the show, so I'll actually see if I can get that on there. Okay, no, that didn't work. And then I'll bring you on. Everyone, I think, is familiar with Sean David Morton. He has a regular show, I think it's days, 3 p.m. Pacific time, if I understand correctly, for a couple hours every day. I think you're still doing every day. Hey, Sean?
Yes, Monday through Friday. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, you're a little bit far away. Maybe turn up your volume maybe a little bit. Yeah, I'm being told that would be
testing,
good.
Testing, yes.
Okay.
Testing, can you hear me now?
I can. Okay, and so what I'm going to do here is also bring you on the screen, and we'll see what the chat is saying about, your sound and all of that. So we'll try to get some feedback from them. And I'll turn my sound up here as well to see if that helps. And hopefully we won't get any feedback or weird things going on. Okay, so there you are, Sean. You're live and in color. And I'm actually turning my camera off on your end so that my camera is dedicated to the YouTube. So that helps the broadband situation. All right, so
all right, let me do one thing. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem. So while Sean is actually, he got the time wrong. It's kind of easy to do because I'm in England and he's in California. And so I don't know, the mentality of Californians. No, just kidding. Well, I am one, but I am sort of this world traveler at the moment. Now I'm doing a conference.
You're a citizen of the planet, Kerry.
Absolutely, and aren't we all? So at the moment, Sean, say hello to the audience.
Hello, audience. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us on Kerry's Fantastico.
And Sean, it's lovely to have you. Why don't we give you a short introduction for people that will watch this who have, I know it's hard to believe, might never have heard of you. It's very, very unusual state of being, but you never know.
Oh, okay.
Very brief.
Hi, Sean David Morton, TV producer, film director, writer, author, radio talk show host, general all-around media communications guy. Graduated from USC with degrees in performing arts and political science. Went to Stanford for a trimester in the summer. Attended the Oxford Astrological School for astrology at Exeter. Let me see, what else? I just between myself and Art Bell with a database of contactees, abductees, scientists, researchers, we built Coast to Coast AM into one of the #1 radio shows in the world with over close to 26 million listeners. And that so I was the #1 guest on Coast to Coast AM. I published the Delphi Associates newsletter for 17 years, actually from 93 until about 2009. And then the internet kind of killed everything. Gosh,
right,
since
well,
then I've been doing,
thanks.
I've been doing Strange Universe. Okay, right, Strange Universe Radio on freedomslips.com Monday through Friday. I've been doing that, I think, for like the last 5 years. So there we go.
Wow. Okay, great. And really a brilliant guy, so knowledgeable on so many topics, and a writer of these wonderful books. Why don't you tell a little bit about the books?
Okay, Sands of Time, Volume 1, 2, and 3. We have the books back in stock finally. So you can go to the website, strangeuniverseradio.com, or you can go to Amazon. Don't be fooled on Amazon, because the original hardcover collector's edition that I put up is for sale on Amazon or eBay or something for something like $2,600. So the books don't cost that much. We have paperback copies of the books, but it was the pinnacle of all the stuff that I was doing and all the research over 30 years or so. Ever since I started going on Coast to Coast AM back in 1991 with Art Bell, and doing my investigations into Area 51, making it an international story, and eventually becoming the movie Independence Day, et cetera, et cetera. There was a man that started contacting me, and he just started calling me on the phone and say, "I'm just a friend and listener, but I have information from the inside." And over the course of the year, he met me at conferences and called me on the phone and just kind of guided me in a direction of giving me insider information. The last I heard from him, actually, he was at the Barack Obama inauguration, and he called me laughing on the phone because I had predicted that Obama would mess up the oath of office, and that he couldn't take the oath as it's written in the Constitution because he wasn't a U.S. citizen. And of course, he fixed that later by stacking the Supreme Court, making a deal with John Roberts and all that. And then I got a call from some very scary lawyers in Century City, who said, I have kittens with the blinds here. Hold on. Hey, you. Stop it. Who told me that, look, here are these journals that were written by this man of his personal life story, and as long as you don't use his name, because he still has a wife and 2 children that are still, I guess, alive, they told me he moved on, which is very weird. They never actually used the word dead, died, funeral, whatever else. He just moved on, like he disappeared. So, but then I began to read the books, or should I say read the journals, which I then transposed into the action novel that's, the 5-star rated. There's like 1,000 5-star reviews up on Amazon as being the best book, and I guess you would call the truth. I don't even know what you call it. The truth, dark world, dark government, black world agenda. And that's what became the book Same Time. And I began to realize it was his personal quest through his father literally disappearing into the time stream, and then him becoming involved with all these various projects to find out what happened to his dad. And, moving forward, it reveals everything about the Montauk Project, the complete dossier on the USS Eldridge and the Philadelphia experiment, the internal workings of what happened during the Dulce Wars, the multiple conflicts that happened in the top secret base in Dulce, New Mexico. And it goes on to really talk about the development of teleportation and time travel. So, and how it's possible and what the mechanics of it are. The third book in the series, ISO Protocol, takes place about 8 years after the first 2 books, and has a lot to do with humanity being isolated to this planet, that there are certain galactic beings out there that just didn't want us moving out into space because they considered us kind of a virus, and it's how we broke the chains of that in about 2006. So anyway, that's what Sands of Time, Volume 1, 2, and then Volume 3, which is the Iceberg Protocol. That's what those are about. So thank you for letting me talk about them.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've read all of them, I believe, and enjoy them very much, and think it's really great. It's great information. We're talking about, in essence, whistleblower testimony practically put into novel form, and done very well by Sean. Let me say that.
Thank you.
And I think you're trying to get it.
Too, is that after I wrote the books, I noticed that all this other information, like Phil Schneider, who was one of the mole men that was digging the tunnels under Dulce, and Bob Lazar, and you know, people that have read the books, and they come in audio as well. So if your folks don't have time to actually read the books, we have audio versions of all the books as well in dynamic audio. But you'll find that the width and breadth of the entire field of UFO phenomena, you know, dark world, black projects, government, all intersects with these books. And there's people that have read these books 2, 3, 4 times and just pull information out of it. I've been trying for years to get a physicist to take a look at some of the mathematical equations in the book that I don't understand, because you know, the manuscript claims to actually give us the mathematical formulas for the unified field theory. And you know, I've approached Nassim Harriman a couple of times, who kind of gave me attitude. Really, it was very strange. I said, look, take a look at this equation and tell me what you think. And you know, Harriman said, well, I've come up with my own theory for the unified field. And I said, well, then you don't need me, I guess. But I've been begging every physicist I can get my hands on. Wait a minute, I'm gonna introduce you to some cuteness, but also stop this nonsense over here. Hold on.
Okay. Oh my God, Darlene, yeah. Okay, do you have any extra ones? I might like to get one. My cat could use some company. Unbelievable, yeah. Norwegian forest cats, beautiful. They raise them. Okay. Thank you very much, Sean. That was charming.
Sorry about that. That was a black Norwegian forest cat. It's like the first all black Norwegian forest cat in the United States in like 20 years. So
yeah, awesome.
And of course you are a Norwegian forest cat fan. You have a lovely Norwegian forest cat.
That's right. No, I was saying, I don't think you could hear me, but I was saying I want one. I want one of your kittens. Well, yeah. Anyway,
kittens for sale.
So, yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to do, Sean, is you know, we're here to get an update from you, and love to hear what you have to say. So you want to start with Antarctica? Where do you want to start?
Okay, we have some great stuff happening. We're going to have actually a live event, which is going to be liverevelations.com, and that's going to be happening from 12 to 12 Pacific time this Saturday, actually 6/17. It's going to be a you know, 3-camera in studio thing that's going to present all this information. There's been all kinds of talk about what's been happening in Antarctica. It's interesting that it's coming to the fore now. But if you tune in on liverevelations.com from 12 to 3 Pacific Daylight Time, it's going to be a 3-camera presentation. It's going to be a whole big deal. And I'm going to present a lot of the physical evidence and the proof and photographs of what I believe are what they're calling themselves the planetary guardians of what's happening in the center of Antarctica. And it's if you put all the pieces together, I'm taking all of this out of the mainstream media, of all these strange things that are going on around Antarctica, certainly including very strange visits there. Buzz Aldrin by, obviously, well, John Kerry, the Secretary of State, who, by the way, is our highest diplomat, who was there on the election day. You would think there would be better places for Kerry to be on election day. And quite possibly Barack Obama, because Obama went all the way down to Argentina and Patagonia, and there are many people that believe that he took a kind of a top secret day to also go to Antarctica. And it really does read like the next Indiana Jones movie. I mean, it could quite literally be the next Indiana Jones movie. I was thinking about putting all this together and maybe writing some kind of novel about it. I have a character I created named Father Dominic Lindquist, who works as a spy and an assassin for the Vatican. And I wrote 2 books, 2 novels, actually, Black Seraph and another novel called The Dark Prophet, Veil of the Antichrist, that has to do with what would happen if the 12th Imam or this Messiah rose up and united all 1.7 billion Muslims against the West, and how we defeat him. And I thought this would be a great thing for him. So what seems to be happening in Antarctica, and like I said, you'll see all the physical evidence of this if you go on liverevelations.com. that it all begins in Mecca. And this is just the stuff that I've managed to piece together. It all starts in Mecca at some point, I think around September of last year, and there was a massive accident. They claimed that there was a stampede. Now, there have been stampedes. There have been radical Iranians who've caused all kinds of trouble and riots, and so there's been a lot of death around around Mecca in the Kaaba, as they call it, with the big black box, and it has a stone in it that looks like a meteor that everybody has to go around and actually touch the stone. Bottom line is that people don't understand that worship of these idols, and specifically the Kaaba, were going on for about 1,000 years before Muhammad even got there. Muhammad gets to this area of Mecca, which is around a historic area called the Zamzam well, and this was the well that sprang from the ground when Ishmael and his mother Hagar were driven out by Abraham. Because remember, Ishmael was the father of the Arab races, or the I don't know, whatever you call them, the Semitic people, was the firstborn son to which the birthright should go to, because Sarah was old, and Abraham boofed his maid Hagar, and then Sarah got pregnant, and so they kicked out Hagar. So she was going to die. Gabriel appears and says, "You're going to be the mother of a great race," and this well comes up which saves her life, which is where Mecca is based. So there were relics that were brought to Mecca, over the course of over 1,000 years. If you had a god or an idol or something weird, you took it to Mecca. So Muhammad shows up in the 600s AD, and is wiping out all the idols and is wiping out all the graven images, and he's going to destroy everything. And suddenly something happens between him and the Kaaba stone, where it beams this energy of God force or something into his head. Now, John Keel, one of my favorite authors who did Mothman Prophecies and Disneyland of the Gods and Why UFOs, he had a really interesting theory. And his theory is that supercomputers that were left over from Atlantis were actually made of stone, were like things like the stones at Stonehenge, maybe the Kaaba stone, and then if you had the tools to properly access them, that you could access all this knowledge of time and space. So his theory is that these supercomputers would protect themselves by beaming a God force radiation that gave you sort of an orgiastic gates of heaven kind of experience. Which is what happened to Muhammad. And he then made his religion, which was all anti-idolatry, one of the biggest idolatrous religions in the world, where now everybody has to pray to the east, and they have to do it 5 times a day, and they have to make the Hajj to Mecca, blah, 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 blah. They find something. They're doing $1 billion reconstruction of Mecca. They find something in the ruins there, which I believe was some kind of mystic box, a version of the Ark of the Covenant. And they open this thing. It creates a lightning storm, a plasma storm that kills 4,000 people. Now, they explain this away as being a stampede, really, that everybody gets all crazy. But they have photographs of the people, and it doesn't look like anybody was trampled to death. There's no blood, there's no footprints, there's no nothing. There's just waves and city streets of dead people that don't look like they were stomped to death. So the mystery becomes, what is it that they found at Mecca that kills 4,000 people? And then the Saudi government then approaches Russia, and in the Crusades, people don't realize that when the Templars were excommunicated and all thought to be demons, 15,000 of them were burned at the stake due to the Inquisition. The Templars, actually 1,000 of them fled to Russia, where they were actually then protected by Tsar Paul. And these were, by the way, the Knights of St. John, the Hospitaliers. These are mostly the ones that provided hospitals and care for people that were making the pilgrimage to Jerusalem at the time. But during the Crusades, the Crusaders not only took on the Muslims and killed them, but they also killed the original Coptics, the Coptic Christians. They killed Russians, they killed Templars, they killed pretty much everybody. So a lot of these sacred books went to Russia and also to the Vatican. So it's very strange that the Saudi Arabians then approach the Russians. they approach the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, Kirill. And by the way, Vladimir Putin is a devout Orthodox Russian Christian. He's best friends with. He consult. Sorry.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. And I just want to say that actually I have a whistleblower who told me a very short version of the long version you're telling me of this. So I can corroborate what you're coming up with here, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, the thing with Putin is that Putin was head of the KGB, and even as head of the KGB under the Soviet Empire, he had to find a way to keep his diehard, very, very fundamental Christian faith secret. So when he then becomes the president of the country, he's now good friends with and consults with the patriarch Kirill, on a weekly basis. So then what happens is that the Catholic and the Russian Orthodox churches have been mortal enemies because of the Inquisition, going all the way back, all the way back to Torquemada and the Spanish Inquisition, 15th century. And if you remember with the Fatima prophecies, Fatima kept saying if only the Pope would consecrate Russia to the Sacred Heart of Mary, et cetera, et cetera. But the Pope could never get into Russia. They would never let him in. There's a big rivalry there. So for the first time in 732 years, which is like ever, you have the Russian Patriarch, after a visit from the Saudi Arabians, contacts the Pope. And he sits down with the Pope. You have no idea how monumentous this is. It's two monolithic churches that despise each other, that have been at war for centuries, suddenly, for whatever reason, just bury the ass. And Kirill goes to the Vatican and meets with the Pope, and they're all buddy and yucky. The theory is, this is my theory. The Russians, I believe, had manuscripts. I think the Romans, or the Roman Catholics, had manuscripts. And I think all this had to do with what they found at Mecca, and that the thing they found at Mecca was a box that is actually described in the Quran, and there's photos of Muhammad with the whole thing. But it's called Ark of Gabriel, and it's like a miniature weaponized version of the Ark of the Covenant, if you will. And so for whatever it's worth, I think the book that everybody was trying to find was maybe how to work it, how to open it, how to direct the energies of it. Very much like the last scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's like, close your eyes, Miriam, the Nazis open the box and all that. I'm pretty sure that's what happened at Mecca, and now they're trying to figure out how it works, what to do with it. This is where it gets weird, because now, for whatever reason, the Russians then go to Jeddah. They actually go to Saudi Arabia, port Saudi Arabia, and the whole Russian fleet, or a big chunk of the Russian fleet, then goes to Antarctica, and they take Archbishop Kirill. And it just so happens, and what are the chances of this, that the Russians actually have a church in Antarctica, which is then it's not a cathedral, but they actually have a Russian Orthodox church there, which Kirill goes and visits. And there's these very funny photos of him, because he's standing on the shore in Antarctica with all the penguins, all coming up to him, and he's there, feeding penguins. And then all the weird stuff starts happening in Antarctica, where you have all these visits from these national leaders. Now here's my theory. This is where it goes in a kind of interesting way, and this is where it links into the extraterrestrial stuff. And I'll show you photographs of the base, of the ships, of all this other stuff, if people want to tune into the liverevelations.com this Saturday from 12 to 3. Here's what I think. I think that Kirill took the Ark of Gabriel with him to Antarctica. I think that whoever's in the middle of Antarctica, that there's a reason why all the allied nations, you have Russia, France, England, the United States, we made the center of Antarctica off limits to any nation, but there are military bases and scientific research facilities all in a circle around Antarctica. And I'll go into the, all the speculation on that about the Germans and whatever else, but I think I can kind of solve the puzzle. About 18 months ago, there was a coronal mass ejection that struck the outer layer of the Earth, and NASA was completely nonplussed at what happened. There was the possibility of what they call a Carrington event, and this happened in the 1800s, where we got hit by a solar flare. The solar energy comes in through the top and the bottom of the Van Allen radiation belt, and then just blasts everything like Australia and Canada and what have you. But in this case, it was 1888 or something. It fried all the telegraph stuff that went across the country, and fried everything that was, we didn't have much electricity back then, but it fried all the telegraph wires. And another event like this happened in 1989, where once again solar flare came in through the top and the bottom, and blacked out big chunks of Canada for quite some time. But maybe melted their igloos up there. Hey, hi, you folks in Canada. So there was another one of these events. They could have had the possibility of this, and NASA was completely nonplussed, because they claim that some kind of shield came from the Arctic and the Antarctic and went and literally plugged the hole from inside the Earth, that this shield popped up and blocked sort of like a rubber diaphragm, if you will, blocked the energy, the flow of the solar energy from the CME from actually coming in through the Van Allen radiation belts, and they couldn't explain it. So either that is some kind of top secret government thing that has to do with HAARP, because HAARP does it does harden sections of the atmosphere, or it was this gang that seemed to be calling themselves the Planetary Guardians, that seemed to be based in the central ice-free region of Antarctica. Now, what are the proofs for some of this? You could go into, and I'm sure your audience is probably the most knowledgeable and smartest in the world, but if you go back to, Kerry, if you have believe me, I've traveled around with you. I know the devotion that people have to you, and the wondrous nature of the information that you manage to give out to people. You're one of the pioneers of the whole kind of YouTube information generation, with millions of people out there that know you and love you, and certainly, like me, appreciate your work. So
thank you, Sean. Likewise, I'm sure. No, continue, please.
I'm towards the end of the story here. So take a couple of leaps of faith with me here. The Germans were obsessed with, if they lost the war, with a Fourth Reich. And so what they were doing is that they were transferring industry, technology to places like Brazil. BMW Messerschmitt had a factory that was 10 times bigger than anything in Germany. But they also claimed Antarctica. They went down and explored it in 1934 and 35. They called it New Schwabenland, and that's even what it's called on many National Geographic maps still. And put Nazi flags all across it, where they engineered the whole thing and mapped it, did whatever else. And according to them, found an ice-free region at the center. And at the center of this, and this played into their whole thing about the hollow earth and the smoky gods, and that there were giants in the middle of the earth. And so the unique aspect of this is that they claimed it as a German base in 34 and 35. Now, after the war, you have all these German submarines that then surrender in Argentina, near the Falklands and all this other stuff. So where were they? What were they doing? Why were they in South America in the first place? There are many people that believe that the Fourth Reich continued not only in Brazil, but also which were friendly to the Germans, by the way, and had treaties with them. And the Germans, when they said they were going to do something, they did it. Which is why the South Americans liked the Germans much better than the Americans, because the Americans never delivered on their promises. But the theory is that they took much of their super science, or their super technology, and that they transported it to Brazil and to the ice-free region in Antarctica, where the Germans put up a base. Now, it gets even stranger, because then you have Admiral Byrd, and Admiral Byrd comes along, and he puts together this big expedition to go explore the Antarctic, but he takes 1,500 troops with him. He takes the precursor of aircraft carriers, if you will. He gets a couple of his planes shot down. He's asked by a Chilean newspaper, why are you taking all these troops and planes and boats? And he said, in case we meet the enemy across the ice. And they said, well, what enemy? The war is over for like 5 or 6 years. And he said, well, no comment. So it seemed pretty clear that whatever he was doing was to make contact with, or destroy, or do something to these German battalions that were at the ice-free region in the center. Now, this is where the Planetary Guardian thing comes in, and this is where the ET thing comes in. made a lot of strange statements at the end of the war, and he said that in the final battle between East and West, that my last battalion will be there to tip the scales. What does that mean? Well, when the U.S. and the Soviets took all the German scientists, kind of the dumb guys, actually, Werner von Braun and his gang, they split them up. And when they attacked Peenemünde, half of the German scientists went to Russia, which dragged them into the jet age, and the other half went to the United States. This is Werner von Braun, inventor of the V2, that dragged us into the jet age. But there was a group of scientists that nobody knew what happened to them. And the Americans were accusing the Russians, and the Russians were accusing the Americans, that these were the guys that were working on the super secret stuff, the last battalion, as they're calling it. And, all this amazingly crazy stuff about anti-gravity, anti-gravity, implosion drives, von Schauberger's engines.
Time travel.
Time travel, yes. Using things like the what they call the Nazi Bell or the Die Glock.
Yep.
Hold on a second, sorry.
Reverse aging, just to name a few.
Yeah, well, they had sorry about that. They had all kinds of science and technology. There were 9 bases in Eastern Europe that were kind of underground. All these things. So it depends on how far you think they got with this. As a matter of fact, the only use of the technology was an American bombing raid of a ball bearing factory in Schweinfurt. And they were screaming in the planes, oh my God, they're from outer space, and there were saucers with the iron crosses on them and all that. Neither here nor there. So, okay, so this is where the ET stuff kind of hooks in. Now, if you go on the website, strangeuniverseradio.com, you can actually download. I think I have a couple of newsletters there. For $10, you can download the VOD Chronicles, which is my trip to about 100 years in the future to all these very accurate predictions of what's going on, and something else called The Man Who Fell to Earth, which is a 2-part interview that I did with a UFO contactee. In my opinion, one of the best ones with the best evidence on the planet, a guy who called himself at that time Audrey, and he was a little Cuban guy from Miami, Florida. Now, we did everything we could with Audrey to get the rights to his story. I mean, we introduced him to TV networks. He had video, he had photos, he had the best stuff in the world. And you'll see a lot of this stuff actually when you tune into the liverevelations.com at 12. It's a free seminar. We're just taking donations. So, but I'll show you many of the photos.
What day is that, Sean?
It's Saturday at noon Pacific.
Coming up coming Saturday.
Yeah, this Saturday, 17th.
Okay.
liverevelations.com. liverevelations.com. It's from noon to 3 Pacific. It's going to be a big 3-camera studio production, and I'm just going to be talking about all this stuff and showing you some of the proofs of this. So the bottom line is, what Audrey told me was that the German scientists had gone to South America, and when they began to move out into space, they were stopped by Pleiadians, whatever you want to call the Galactic Council that kind of has isolated this planet. And they were basically told, well, we're not going to put up with your fascist Nazi stuff. By the way, it was a group of it was Germans and Italians. There were a lot of people who believed that Marconi faked his death or disappeared and that he went down there. But they put together, the two of them came together, and they put together this big base in the Mount Moros Plains in Brazil. And Adrian and his girlfriend, Claudina, went to the base and photographed. Actually, he's in front, and I'll show you the photos at the liverevelations.com. He's standing in front of these giant platforms. And the huge platforms have ships that are about 100 meters across. Each one of them is 300 feet or so. And, of various German and, I guess, Pleiadian design. I mean, there's one big ship that he says was actually built by BMW Messerschmitt. These were the next wave or phase of what they called the Haunebu 1 and 2, or the Vril, the VRILL ships as they move forward. So not only are they in Brazil, but they also have the base in Antarctica, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. Well, it gets very interesting. I think that whoever these planetary guardians were, and if they're German, I can't say Nazi because the whole Nazi thing is sort of faded away, but I'm pretty sure that once they discovered this, I'm sorry.
Sorry. The Nazi thing faded away. You know, you don't believe we're not in the
it faded away. It became the United States government. That's
They're fascists. They're fascists.
Yeah, they are fascists. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
They don't call themselves National Socialists anymore, but come on. I mean, so many of these people are in government today are just National Socialists.
By any other name, but go right ahead.
Well, they transported. They didn't say to the Germans, "Oh, that's horrible. Let's stop it." They said, "Oh, show us how to do that. Show us how to enslave everybody. Show us all the fascism."
This guy Canaris, and that is in essence Michael Shrimpton's information about the German DVD that's alive and well, and supposedly orchestrating all kinds of devious acts around the world. But nonetheless, continue.
Anyway, so according to Adrian, they moved out of space, but they teamed up with the Palladians, and now have this big base in the Mount Moros Plain in Brazil, and also in the ice-free region at the center of Antarctica. Now, when Byrd went down there, I don't need to write the history of this. Most of your audience knows it, but Byrd went down there, got his plane shot down, basically kind of got his butt kicked. He came back in 1953 in July, and they said, what should we do with Antarctica? And he said, I think we should test hydrogen bombs there. Well, that's ridiculous. You test hydrogen bombs in Antarctica, you melt the ice caps, you destroy the world. The next night, however, and for 2 nights after that, is the famous, I think it's July of, pretty sure it's 53, it might be 52, but it's right off the top of my head. But the famous photographs of a fleet of UFOs flying in what they call Luftwaffe formation, actually for the entire night, for 2 nights in a row, buzzing the Capitol building. And that's where the famous photographs come from, of the Capitol dome with this wave of UFOs behind it.
All right.
Those were made, if you correlate those things together, those were made right after Byrd's comments about testing hydrogen bombs in Antarctica, which was in essence like a warning of, you better keep your grubby fingers off Antarctica or else. So, okay, so here's where the Arctic thing comes in. We've discovered, and we built a brand new base there, but we discovered not only that there was a great civilization in Antarctica at one time, and this goes all the way back to an ice-free Antarctica. It goes all the way back to we didn't discover, I don't think we discovered Antarctica until, well, I'm not sure when it was, but if you go all the way back to, 1,000 years BC, you have the maps of the ancient sea kings that actually describe kind of a thriving civilization in Antarctica, a walled civilization, actually, that actually forms. Now we can see from space that there is a huge wall around Antarctica that looks like a Celtic cross, actually a cross through it as well. But we've discovered baffles of pyramids down there, very much like, and every bit as big and probably bigger than the Giza complex in Cairo. And this is where suddenly the United States got a big interest in putting together some bases down there, which is what are now being visited by the likes of Buzz Aldrin and John Kerry and allegedly Barack Obama. And once again, these planetary guardians, and I think that they demanded that they return the Ark of Gabriel, either that it was too dangerous to be left in the hands of anybody else, or I don't know what the deal is. It's not like the New World Order calls me on the phone, but I am convinced that with the cooperations of the Russians and the Roman Catholics and the knowledge that they have and Patriarch Kirill, imagine the Pope going to Antarctica. This is how big a thing this is. If the Pope was to just say, I'm going to go visit a church in Antarctica, and I'm going to take the entire Italian fleet with me, that would raise a few eyebrows. But that's exactly what happened with Archbishop Kirill. He took most of the Russian fleet with him to Antarctica, appeared to deliver something to these planetary guardians. And let me give you one other thing about Obama's little trips that were. When Obama was president, he had this posse of people. Where he went, it cost us like $200 million because he used like 2 planes, he used all escorts, and it cost us $200 million for him to go to India because he took. Michelle had something like 150 assistants, and Obama himself took a bunch of airplanes. Treated all his friends. He lived like Caligula, this guy, and he had this group of 83 guys, and they were his posse that go with him to all these kind of weird things. The first one where he went was Oslo, Norway, to accept the Nobel Peace Prize, which they wanted to take away from him afterwards. And he played it off. He said, I get it. I'm black. I'm cool, but I haven't really done anything yet to earn this. But the reason he was there is he was there with this posse of people, and they were there to watch a demonstration, I believe, of a zero-point energy black hole mechanism, which is what created the Norway spiral, this weird thing that appeared in the sky for 9 minutes that I can prove was actually done by the European version of HAARP, which is called ISCAT, the European Incoherent Scattered Radiation Transmitter, ISCAT. I'm sorry?
Fair enough, I said.
Yeah, and this thing created a zero-point energy black hole between Earth and Sun. And what it did was the Sun, after that, this is 2009, mind you, December 9th, actually, you can look it up. The Sun goes quiet. The Sun goes completely quiescent for almost 2 years after that. And electromagnetic north shifts. So true north is up here. Electromagnetic north was here in 1842. And then after 1945, we start dropping atom bombs all over the world, and it knocks the Earth slightly off kilter. And then suddenly magnetic north starts traveling northwards. And the RAND Corporation and all these government think tanks said if they meet, there could be either a physical shift to the poles or an electromagnetic shift to the poles, which would be, in some ways, for modern civilization, just as bad, because it would fry every device, electrical device we have that's connected to a ground wire. So, but now suddenly the North Pole, the electromagnetic north, which is marching this way, ever since 1945, takes a hard right turn and starts heading this way. So now it's almost 1,800 kilometers due east in the middle of the Siberian Sea. So that's what happens after 2009. The next time Obama gets together with his buddies, they go and they celebrate or go to the funeral of Nelson Mandela in Antarctica. I'm sorry, in South Africa. Well, everybody knew that Mandela had been dead for 6 months. He died sometime in May of that year, but it just so happened that there were like 2 comets that were crossing in the sky. There's all kinds of weird astronomical stuff that was going on. And Obama and his posse then go and they visit something called the Temple of the Unknown God. And they all do some big ceremony out of this temple. I mean, this is the papers. This is all Main Street stuff. The next time he gets his posse together, he goes, once again, all this weird stuff starts happening in Antarctica with once again, the shield that seems to pop up from the North and South Pole that defends us from this coronal mass ejection. And he and his buddies, I think, go to Antarctica to meet with whoever's down there. So the big mystery is, who is it? Why are they there? Are they protecting us from something? And why the sudden interest from all these world governments with sending our top diplomat, like John Kerry as an example, especially on election day, to go maybe meet with who's down there, and what is happening with these pyramid structures that we found that we're building military bases next to. So again, I'll show you a bunch of UFO photos and the all the proofs of this stuff if you guys go to the thing on Saturday, the liverevelation.com.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
There's my little Antarctica revelation story, but like I said, come in liverevelation.com.
I appreciate that. Actually, Sean, I am wondering, are you familiar with the testimony of William Tompkins? And some of his testimony is actually elaborating on some of what you're coming across with. So, are you familiar with it? Do you have a thought about it?
No, I try to stay, independent of not being influenced by a lot of people who are saying things out there. I try to, do my own research on this. But if that's what he's saying, then maybe you have other people out there with better information that could solve whatever the mystery is of why everybody's so obsessed with the center of Antarctica all of a sudden.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Yeah, this is a whistleblower who came out and is basically being, seems to be fronted by the Navy, although he's avoiding certain topics and so on. And now there's some controversy regarding that because he seems to be aligning himself and supporting some of the Corey Good so-called revelations about the so-called blue avians. But prior to that, he did have some very good information about the so-called, what we know of as the New Berlin base in Antarctica, and Admiral Byrd and what went on with that. So it's all in my interview with him in case you want to catch up there.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Now, as far as where you're going to go next. You know, and it's really interesting. I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's great if people can go and watch what you've got on Saturday. This is the June 17th. It's at live. What is it? Live?
Sorry, liverevelations.com. It's with Lori Fenton.
Okay.
And so she's, sorry, I'm moving this around here. Yeah, so Lori Fenton has been kind enough to put this on, and it's sort of a, it's very much, let me mention this, it's very much a fundraiser for my wife. She had a stroke in April. She has arachnoid cysts in her brain, and they exploded because of the stress and the pressure of things that are going on. She was taken to the ICU. She was clinically dead. She wasn't breathing for 4 minutes. They put a intubation tube down her throat, and she was in a coma actually for 2 days. She came out of it on the third day. I thought they were going to have to keep her for observation, but because of this, she's had, so we've put a GoFundMe site together to help pay for her medical bills and a lot of the other stuff that's going on, which is just GoFundMe.com/care for Melissa. So no matter what you think about me or, you know, what I do, certainly Melissa doesn't deserve all the stuff that's happening to her. So, you know, anything that your wonderful viewers and listeners can come up with, it's GoFundMe.com/care for Melissa. That's what it is. And, or Sweet Melissa, Care for Melissa. And it's a,
okay. Is Melissa, is the care, I mean, for is FOR or?
FOR, yeah. Care for FOR Melissa. Care for FOR Melissa.
Okay,
and it's a
and
GoFundMe.com.
Sean, you know, we'll be glad to put a free ad on the front page of Camelot to help you there.
Thank you. That would be, she's got some, you know, it's just her brain's not functioning right. She's got twittering in her, you know, fluttering in her eyes. She's got numbness in her left hand. She can barely type or use the computer anymore. It's,
yeah, I'm very sorry to hear this.
We're recovering slowly, and it's, you know, the medicine and the doctors and all that. So, along with, you know, other things with, you know, other things that are happening and going on in regards to the legal appeals and what's happening there. So,
right. Well, I'm very, very sorry to hear that. Melissa is a lovely woman.
Thank you.
Very good friend for many, many years. And,
yes.
And I'm very, very sorry to hear that.
And a world championship Norwegian forest cat breeder, as you know.
That's exactly
okay?
right.
Is Tally okay?
That's Tally's wonderful.
Okay, good. Okay,
and,
he's a great cat. He's Zaboo's brother, so I know how wonderful Tally is, because he's a wonderful Norwegian forest cat.
He always makes brief appearances on my show, and always cries when I'm on the air. And he's a real Leo. So anyway, yes, please do consider donating. And like I said, we'll put a free ad on the front page of Camelot to help this cause, this very worthy cause of getting Melissa back into good health. Well,
as you and I both know, Kerry, you know, you have a wonderful man friend, boyfriend, whatever. These are the people that are, you know, these are the people that are behind the scenes. These are the people that support the people like us.
That's right.
And allow us to be able to do what we do, and they never get the credit they deserve. They never get the love they deserve. You know, as you know, it takes a whole support staff to do the kind of stuff that we do and get things out there. I know, you know, you and I are pretty much, you know, one-stop shops and all that we do pretty much everything ourselves.
Yes.
Because that's just the way you have to do things in the quote alternate media. You know, fake news has billions of dollars and massive conglomerates for them to just make stuff up every day. And not only do we not get any support, but we get attacked, we get reviled, we get slandered, we get smeared, which is all part of the whole CIA mind control thing to, you know, discredit.
No doubt about it.
Just remember, everything the media tells you is either wrong or a lie. And if you do the exact opposite, or pay attention to the people that they're smearing, or look behind the scenes on why they're going after that person, you will almost always see that it's somebody that's fighting for truth or justice. It's someone that's trying to get the truth out there, and that those are the people that get the you know, they get the low kicks, dirty tricks, and rotten licks. Especially, you know, the stuff that I've been going through, you know, from people in our own community. You know, shame on you, George Norrie. Shame on you, you know, people out there that talk about this. I've been doing nothing but trying to help people, trying to set people free, trying to do trying to do what's right. I mean, I've never knowingly broken the law in my entire life. And, you know, to have these people come after me, for them to bend over backwards to do the things, you know, to think up stuff to do against us is just an outrage. So please, once again, GoFundMe.com/care for Melissa. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, what's next? What else are we going to talk about? Time travel.
Actually, you said, you know, we have a sort of a short list here, and you said you wanted to talk about how thought crime is now being actually, you know, prosecuted or pursued by the, I don't know, law enforcement, powers that be. How can you elaborate on that particular story?
Well, here's what's going on. You know, the attacks on Melissa and I are just, they're so outrageous. They've broken statutes of limitations. They've you know, they told the jury that they could only look at evidence that proved our guilt. They said that we couldn't actually present a defense, you know, for any of this. And 8 years ago, we were working with Alexander Adams and Brandon Adams. Alexander Adams was a CPA, and what we did is that we had we were dealing with foreign exchange trading. And I had a trader that didn't do what I told him to do, and basically, and we turned about $525,000 into almost $6 million. And then the trader tanked the accounts. He just did the exact opposite of everything I told him to do and lost the money. And so, in the process of this, we filed losses for taxes, you know, on these funds, like we were supposed to do. And we used what was called the 1099 original issue discount process, where we put in 48% withholding, which the government kept. And I got after doing this with a CPA and filling out all the proper paperwork, the U.S. Treasury wrote me a check for the refund that was applied for. Now, again, I only, you know, they kept 48% in withholding, but then they wrote us a check that had to do with losses, you know, in the millions of dollars. So, you know, it was a fairly substantial check. Well, they write me this check. Not only did they write me the check, but they sent me a letter beforehand that says, you've done your math incorrectly. We owe you another $500. Would you like that? And I said, okay. So they got it. They audited it. They sent me the audit and then wrote me a check. Well, my big crime here apparently is that I cashed the check. And over the course of like 6 months, I spent the money trying to put together a film company called Asgard Media. And we were putting together offices. We were buying stock. We were trying to get the company to go public. So there were all kinds of, you know, there were legal fees and all this, you know, only for us to learn that the Securities and Exchange Commission had no intention of letting a private company that dealt in entertainment go public. They only allow these public offerings from subsidiaries from people like Disney and GE and whatever else. So in the course of this, I kept getting letters from the IRS that said, we owe you more money. And we're just checking to see if there's any other back taxes or any other thing that you owe or anything that needs to get paid. So I had no inkling whatsoever that we'd done anything wrong. 6 months later, they throw some paperwork at my doorstep, and then the IRS now says, well, we want the money back, that this is an erroneous refund. Well, again, they're claiming that it's an erroneous refund that was generated by a computer error. And I'm like, okay, well, I write them letters. It said, show me how it's erroneous. And you know, we've spent the money. I don't know what you want me to do. And then they started coming after us for, you know, for all this cash, which we didn't have. So every attempt that we made, every letter that we wrote was to try to set off, settle, and discharge this debt. And apparently just writing them letters, they're trying to say, just writing letters to try to fix this is some kind of crime. And, you know, the copious correspondence was something to defraud them. So using the legal information that we had available, friends came to me. This is about 13 people now over the course of 3 years. And they asked us to see if we could put together non-negotiable monetary instruments to set off, settle, and discharge debt that was all based on House Joint Resolution 192. And this was on the bankruptcy of 1933. And not going into the long explanation of this, but the monetary system of the government under Article 1, Section 10 was based on gold and silver. Well, when the United States was the debtor and they went bankrupt to the creditor, which was the Federal Reserve System, they took all the people of the United States, all the U.S. citizens who then were residents of the states, and they kind of bundled them up like a bunch of cows and handed them to the Federal Reserve and said, well, here you go. You can keep all these people as collateral. Well, a congressman named Louis McFadden sued the Congress and the Senate and said, you can't do that. You have to give the people some benefit if you're going to start running the economy based on their credit for the rest of time, and especially not doing anything and not changing the Constitution. It was all emergency war powers and all that. So they came up with this thing called House Joint Resolution 192 that then said, and it would have been a perfect system. It would have allowed them to borrow against the credit of the people and allowed those people to then set off, settle, and discharge, mortgages, loans, credit cards, whatever else, because all these things are being created with your signature. They take your signature, take it to the Federal Reserve window, they sprinkle magic pixie dust on it, and suddenly that becomes money in the society. So again, we did these non-negotiable instruments. Now, again, we followed every precept of law that we knew when we submitted the instrument. It was submitted by a notary, and it had a legal letter of advice that said, if there's anything wrong with this, could we please get an opinion from your attorneys if we're doing anything wrong, or if there's anything that's cattywampus with this. It came with a memorandum of understanding. It came with pages of the laws that were being used. It came with a non-negotiable instrument that was only to be used to set off the debt, that was usually for 3 or 4 times more than the debt, so they would make a profit as well. That was then certified by the county, apostilled by the state. So it was all, and it would have been void if it wasn't put together. Now, according to UCC law and rules, the Uniform Commercial Code is about presentment. So when you make a presentment of something, of a monetary instrument, and this is the better way to explain it. If I owe you $1 million, Kerry, and if I owe a bank $1 million, let's put it that way, and I say, well, will you accept something else of equal or greater value that's not Federal Reserve notes? And okay, so let's say I submit a Superman 1 1937 comic or something, and it's worth $3 million. Well, only people that know anything about comic books would be able to value that. My mom would just say it's a bunch of colored paper and throw it out or burn it or whatever else. It's just taking up room. But to other people, it's worth something. So if I submit that to the bank or to whomever as payment, they have to return it if they don't want to accept it. So here's what went down. We presented this. After 30 days, we sent them a notice of fault, opportunity to cure, which is, okay, look, we sent you a monetary instrument. What are you going to do with it? You going to respond? Then they wouldn't respond again for another 30 days. We sent them a notice of default, and then 30 days after that was a notice of default and dishonor, which said, okay, if you're going to keep the monetary instrument, then we're good. We're done. Thank you very much. Please settle debt. Now, the banks and the credit card companies, they kept all this paperwork. They didn't respond to it at all. Or they would say, in one case, they said, well, we're not going to accept it. The response would be, well, then you have to give it back. You have to actually tell us that you don't like it and the reason that you don't like it, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now the government is trying to say that that's a thought crime, that just making the presentment that says, here's an offer, is it okay, is it all right, please have your attorneys tell us if there's any deficiencies in this, and if you don't want it, just send it back. Well, the government has come up with a charge claiming that that's a conspiracy to somehow defraud the Treasury, even though they couldn't produce a single original piece of evidence, because it is my opinion that the banks have taken the monetary instruments, put them on deposit, and are using them, because they couldn't produce one single original piece of evidence. It was all copies of stuff, primarily stuff that they stole out of our house. So if you can imagine that I'm jumping up and down going, this is hearsay, this is nonsense. The banks are using these things. They, and they got this past a jury that, I mean, we're just doomed from the beginning. The judge was a former tax prosecutor that worked for them. We had Melissa was appointed an attorney that said, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about tax law. Would not let us present our defense, would not let us present that Melissa had not only paid her taxes, but had been zeroed out. The IRS, she had paperwork from the IRS that said, you owe us nothing. And still, we got room down the river. And even in what they're saying, they're actually saying we are making an example out of Sean Morton. because he is somebody that that we don't like, and he's to be made an example of for anybody else that wants to try this in the future. So in essence, that's so now we're in the process of filing, sort of fighting the appeal on this. Look, the search warrant was invalid. There was no culpability on our part. There was nothing that said that we thought we were committing any type of crime. With the original issue discount, this is another interesting thing. Whenever you put $1 in the banks fractionalize that money, and they can loan out 99 cents against every dollar.
Yep.
There's people that say 10% or 10 times, but it's not that. It's every bank. It used to be a quarter, then it was a dime, then it was a nickel, now it's a penny. They only have to have 1 penny for everything they claim in assets. So, all right, so if you put $100 in the bank and they loan out $99 of that 100, well, you're the original issuer of the fund and deposit. Therefore, you get the discount of the bank giving you a refund at the end of the year. This is all IRS stuff, because then you file what's called a 1099-A, which is, and look, I'm not saying to do this. In our case, Alexander Adams, who was the CPA that did the paperwork for us, he was sued by the IRS civilly to just get an injunction against him to make him stop filing their paperwork so that people would get refunds. Same thing happened with this woman, Jacqueline Coelho, in Los Angeles, where, again, she was filing the 1099 OID exactly as it's laid out in TurboTax, filing a 1099-A saying that these funds are not abandoned and we would like to acquire them, and then getting the credit back from the IRS. But apparently now they're saying that just being issued a check in all good faith in the Treasury and cashing it is now a big crime. And then everything that we tried to do after that in trying to set off this debt, because here's what they do. When they accuse you of something, they just turn around and say, well, you owe us $2.5 million in back taxes. Well, now you can't get any justice in tax court, because if you go to tax court, you have to put up the money. And then it's like traffic court. You have to then, if you want to have your ticket heard, you have to put up the fine and then come back and then fight the court to get the court to give you back your money. Tax court's the same way. And by the way, tax court is set up under the executive branch, which is the Treasury, which has no right to set up courts. So nothing they really say is valid, because it doesn't come under the judicial branch at all. But they can just hit you with a massive fine and then turn around and say, and then you have no access to the tax court. And then they claim all kinds of immunity.
But sorry, Sean, you know David Wynn Miller?
I do, and I talked to David Wynn Miller, and with all due respect, David Wynn Miller wrote me a thing, and it's God bless him. It's incomprehensible. It's
really?
If I was to show it to you, you would look at it and just go, what? There's other people that say that.
Well, normally you understand this thing about language and all of this. I can't say that I'm a big fan of what he does, but I understand. I appreciate the spirit of what he's doing. But
if you actually look at the work itself, which he sent me, and God bless him, I talked to him on the phone for a while. It's just like, it's incomprehensible. It's literally like Martian.
Yes,
and there's like symbols and all kinds of weird things in it. And he claims it's worked in all these cases. I would certainly like to see cases where it's worked, because on the one hand, he claims that there's all kinds of people. Look, and I've been through everybody on this. I mean, I've been through, so many people on this end, and it's just.
Well, Jordan Maxwell has had a lot of legal difficulties. I can't say much about it, because the person who gives him legal difficulties once would try to sue me if I even referred to them. They're really like complete psychos. But at any rate, as a result, he's had to get some fairly good attorneys in Hollywood. And he did refer me to them. They couldn't do anything at the moment for me, I don't think. But I don't have, big legal troubles at the moment. But our YouTube videos keep getting stolen and posted by other people who then YouTube makes 45% on the ads, and the person makes money on the video, and Camelot loses money in droves. And I'm talking droves and droves, because I have over 600, believe it or not, 600 videos, interviews on YouTube.
Right.
So I'm huge. That's a huge, people are just stealing it. They make whole channels, and I cannot keep track of it all. I can't track it all down. And YouTube does this. They have full knowledge of it. So in essence, what we have is a class action, a basis for a class action suit. Which I'm putting that out here now because it's actually very crucial. In other words, YouTube is making money off the back of creative people and allowing other people to steal their videos, to put them online, to make money, and then they make 45% off of it. So they're benefiting from stolen.
People on the internet run scams. What?
I'm just saying, so, this is what's going on in this world. I mean, it's crazy stuff. But I do want to say that, anyway, just a thought, if you want to talk to Jordan, he might have some thoughts for you in your current situation. But it is also clear.
I told Jordan, not to interrupt you, I told Jordan I think the best thing for him to do is I think he should do what Prince does, what he did.
Yeah.
Jordan is all about symbols and he's all about arcane stuff.
Yeah,
Jordan, come up with a really cool symbol for yourself and become the researcher formerly known as Jordan Maxwell.
I think he's actually winning his case. He might even have won it at this point. But all I'm saying is that if you need a resource, he's somebody who's been harassed. Now, this is what I want to get around to, because the bottom line here, with appreciation to you for going into so much detail, because, in case other people have issues like this, it's worthwhile. But I do want to say the real reason you're being targeted is because of the work you do. Had you not written the Sands of Times books, I think perhaps they would leave you alone. But as it is now, being a bestseller and all of that, and also revealing quite a bit about the secret space program in the process, this is their issue. I guess they're trying to shut you up, basically.
Yeah, and it's and make me sound like I'm some kind of tax cheat and that I didn't do anything properly, and that and again, it's the propaganda machine of these guys is just crazy. I mean, we did the 1099 OID process once, back in 2009, and the statute of limitations for these things is 3 years and 5 years, and they went to almost 7 years. I mean, this is all 8 years ago that this stuff happened, and then they tried to say that, okay, we're getting around the statute of limitations because you were submitting the non-negotiable instruments, so therefore it's one big long crime that happened over the course of 8 years, even though it's all separate, and it's
right.
And again, the non-negotiable instruments were paperwork being submitted by notaries to people as an offer that said, if you don't like it, please send it back. And in every single case of people that of the 13 friends and family that we did this for, I said, look, any payment or donation or remuneration that you give me, if they just return the bond, I'll give you back your money. And in every single case, look, we went through 3 court cases where we pressed this and subpoenaed these people and said, produce the monetary instrument, just give it back and we will drop this whole thing. And in every single case, you can't even believe it. Oh, the dog ate it. Oh, we lost it. Oh, we ordered it destroyed. Oh, we have a new clerk and it was in the desk and they threw out the desk and the bond was in the desk.
You know what? I'm dealing with a Freedom of Information Act guy who's very diligent here in the UK that I just did an interview with, a fascinating guy. It's on the front page of my website right now if you're interested. He actually taps into all kinds of really fascinating things in the process, but he's having the same problem in Britain, believe it or not. And they continually say that they've lost stuff. In other words, that they can't release Freedom of Information documents, even on, your own self, a person who requests it, right? Because in essence, they've lost them, they misplaced them, they this and that. They've always got excuses, and it's a scam. I mean, it's a government scam in essence.
Yes.
And he proves that. I think his name is Alan Drainsfield or something. And anyway, it's on the front page of my site. So I'm not saying yours is not the first time that governments have tried to manipulate the people.
I demanded FOIA stuff from IRS, and I actually got a FOIA letter back from them that said your tax return was erroneous and was the result of a computer error on our part, and no one at the IRS has a claim against you.
Excellent.
Bottom line. I mean, that's what it said. And
Well,
still,
did you publish
it
that?
went
I
forward.
mean, you should publish that on the internet.
Okay, all right. Well, I probably should. So
Yeah,
it's
you should set up
but
a
it says
website.
no one has a
Set up a
claim against you,
website.
and that the
Put all your
that
documents on a website and publish it for the whole world to see and see what happens.
yeah. So it's there's that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Sean. Would you like to take some questions from the audience? Do you have more to share with us today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's talk about, there's just so much that's about to happen, and there's so many things. And you can see that, the deep state is just going after hammer and tong. First off, anybody that supported Trump, and I was rather famous for the fact that, like a year in advance, I kept saying, look, Trump's going to be president of the United States, and that Hillary Clinton is never, ever, never, ever, ever going to be president. Been saying that for 16 years. And that something's going to happen, and whatever else. And I talked about how Trump would win by a pretty substantial margin, and that pissed everybody off. But I think it's just interesting what's happening behind the scenes, what's going on with the deep state, what's happening with I mean, Trump has arrested 2,900 people as part of pedophile rings across the country, and that's not hitting the front page of the paper. Trump talks about stopping the drug trade. Okay, everybody wants to stop the drug trade. Drugs are bad. But when you realize that the number one drug dealer on earth is the Central Intelligence Agency, which means now you got to take on the CIA. And then if you take on the CIA, then you got to take on the military-industrial complex, because they're bringing 100 billion cash in opium and heroin out of Afghanistan. Now, then you got to take on the pharmaceutical companies that are getting their heroin from Afghanistan.
And this is how they're funding the black projects, don't forget, and also what they're digging out of the ground in Afghanistan is the metals that go into building the space travel, the spaceships, etc., used for free energy, etc., etc. I don't even know the name of there's some, I forget the name of the thing. It starts with an L, I think. Anyway.
But they're also digging,
elements.
the reason this whole thing about the Congo right now is the AFRICOM and the Congo is they're digging coltan out of the Belgian Congo. So you're going to start seeing conflict there.
Yep.
Because here's what the United States does. The United States, it's exactly what Britain used to do. You go in, you balkanize the place, you arm all the different factions, you then create chaos, and then you can come in and could control all those various factions, and then control what's going on. The only reason we're making such a big fuss about North Korea right now and jumping up and down around them is because just beyond the border of the DMZ zone, in the western part of the country, we found a gigantic reserve of minerals, of coltan and these exotic minerals and all this other stuff. So suddenly Korea is a big deal, because we want to either reunify or do something about them to get access to all this mineral wealth that they're not exploiting just across the border of the DMZ. So there's
someone said lithium in the chat. Just so you know, these are the many topics we decided to talk about. So you can look at, we're still on topic here for people that might be wondering, and we have a very wide breadth here in Camelot. So we're happy to go almost anywhere when we're talking to someone as erudite as Sean is, and has so much knowledge, very specific knowledge. He's been, in a sense, doing a lot of the same things I do, and for many, many years, in fact, for longer than I've been doing it. So I totally admire you, Sean. And, we just did a 5-hour interview with John Lear.
Oh, nice. Love John.
Yeah. And, he that's on my channel. So could you please, watch that? It's a fascinating interview.
Is he okay? Is he all right?
He's had many, many health problems. No, he's not in great shape. Very sad to say. But we cheered him up immensely. I can tell you that. And he would not let us leave. I mean, 5 hours, and he was still.
Well, I think he's towards the end of his time, and he had. John's a great man. He's just a great man. For his birthday, actually in '91, December 6th, I still remember it. I actually I drove as far as I could, but I took him to the hilltop that I discovered at Area 51 at Whitesides Mountain for his birthday, and he's just looking over it, going, "God damn, why aren't you dead? Why haven't they killed you yet?" And I was like, "Well, there you go." And it's funny because then after that, John told everybody about it, and then it became a big thing, and then everybody started climbing it, and then then the government had to figure out a way to take it away and all that
right.
stuff. So it's but I just remember that, the old adventures back in the early '90s with John and Bill Cooper and
that's right,
and all that craziness back at the
Good
beginning.
stuff.
Sitting in a truck with Bill Cooper with his gun and
wow,
and saying, if they catch me out here, they'll kill me. And I was like, well, you seem a little paranoid, Bill. Really, your little pop gun against the Wackenhut guys riddling you with bullets? I would just as soon leave the gun home.
He was proved right as it happened. Listen.
Yeah. Okay, let's take some questions. You got questions?
Yes, but first I want to ask you: did you see the latest announcement by Bob Bigelow? And he's been working with the secret space program now for a while, but he's also saying emphatically that aliens are real, they're here, and he doesn't care what anyone else has to say. You didn't see that?
I did see the interview. It was a mainstream press thing where he said, yes, aliens are here, and I don't care, who knows it, and
that was awesome.
Are you afraid? It was one of those kind of interesting conversations where it's like, well, I got so much money, I don't care what anybody thinks. And because he's got what they call FU money, so he can believe whatever he wants.
That's right.
But I also noticed, what has he done with, Robert has bought up a lot of places that people were investigating and researching.
That's right.
Just kind of put them off limits. I mean, he bought up Stargate Ranch in Sedona. He bought up
Skinwalker Ranch.
There's two places he bought. He bought what was called Stargate Ranch in Sedona, and Skinwalker Ranch in Utah.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happens. I mean, are they private doorways to other dimensions that he's accessing or something?
Well, it would appear.
Because then the access to him just seems to get cut off. So
right.
I'm not saying he's not a good guy. And, Robert, if you're watching this, I could sure use some money and use some help. But, my wife needs your help, and we need your help with the legal bills and all that stuff. But it's,
right.
No,
it's just that, I loved it because in essence, it's also providing sort of an unspoken challenge, if you will, to people like Elon Musk and other people out in the sector. Actually, Branson, Virgin, right? That's his company.
Virgin Galactic, Virgin Atlantic, and all that. Well, it's good that rich people with a lot of money start, but then on the other hand, you have the really evil rich people like, Bill Gates, who, actually uses the words population control and vaccines in the same sentence.
Yes.
And, has spread plagues of all kinds of bad, rotten things. And you have the people that are, these billionaires that are working with the government. I'll tell you one good billionaire story that Pete Carroll is a good friend of mine. And I got to go sit on the sidelines of a Seattle Seahawks and Arizona Cardinals game. And it was during the pregame warm-ups, and I'm standing on the sideline, and Pete walks over, this very tall man, all decked out in the Seahawks gears, and he goes, Paul Allen, I want to introduce you to my very best buddy, Sean Morton. And I just kind of froze, and I was like, and so he shook his hand, and I said, hey, Mr. Allen, can I borrow $50? And Paul goes, no, why do you think I'm so rich?
Right.
It just kind of walks away. Well, and Pete starts laughing. He says, well, that's kind of funny. That's a weird reaction from him. And then Pete says, I want you to know that man, when the Ebola virus broke out in Africa, that man took personal responsibility for what was going on there. And he pulled out his checkbook and wrote a check for $100 million that he didn't want anybody to know about. And he outfitted 8 747s as complete state-of-the-art flying hospitals. Wow. And he sent those 747s over there to Monrovia, Liberia, whatever else. And I can tell you that because of that, they stopped the Ebola outbreak that could have killed, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Wonderful.
And Paul Allen was the one that took responsibility. He said he got no publicity for it, didn't tell anybody,
right.
$100 million out of his pocket to basically single-handedly stop the outbreak and the spread of Ebola. So,
well, it is totally possible for billionaires to defect, to do what I call defect, over to the good side. And,
yes.
There's plenty of time left for them to do so. We're happy to accept them here and bring their stories forward. So just putting the word out for them in that way. Someone here, Sean, wants to know if you think Trump will do anything to lead to disclosure.
It's above his pay grade. I keep telling people that, Bill Clinton got into the White House and it was beyond his security clearance. He said two things. He said, I want to know what happened at Roswell. and I want to know what happened to JFK because he was my childhood hero. And I said, you don't have the clearance to know either of those things. You're a temporary resident for 8 years. You're not part of the deep state. You're not one of the permanent bureaucracy.
Yep.
Oddly enough, the person that gave him all the information on Roswell was that he and Hillary and Chelsea all went on this big retreat for about 6 weeks to Lawrence Rockefeller's ranch in Wyoming. They have like the Rockefeller National Forest out there. And it was Lawrence Rockefeller that put the report together that put this entire report together specifically to inform Clinton about Roswell. It's above their pay grade. The other thing is too is that, again, if the government came out tomorrow and told you there were aliens, would you believe them? I mean, you know, they've been lying for 75 years. Why would they start telling the truth now? And I think it's also gone, Kerry, remember, it went from UFOs don't exist to UFOs aren't dangerous, only people who see them are, to the Condon report. I'm not kidding. The Condon report then saying people that claim they see UFOs should be horsewhipped. That was Richard Condon claiming horsewhipping for people that claim to see UFOs. And then it went from we can either confirm or deny, which is kind of interesting. And I think they are telling the truth now. Now there may not be any unidentified flying objects. Maybe they're all IFOs, and they are all identified because we know what everything is coming and going, so to speak.
Right.
And it wasn't until really, and this is what my book Isomer Protocol, which is book 3 in the series, until we kind of punched these ETs in the nose and said we don't need your babysitting anymore, that they were actively enforcing a quarantine on this planet, because we're considered, even our language is considered a virus in some part of the universe, and we're considered a disease because of our not only physical disease, but because of our greed and avarice. I don't buy into that.
I think that's actually mind control. Humans are just a big threat to the Anunnaki, and we are a hybrid race of so many other races, 12 and or more. So at this point, you can't really say that. As a matter of fact, we are probably going to be their teachers ultimately. So,
well, isn't that what the abduction phenomenon really is? Is it because we're an amazingly complex and valuable library or storehouse of flora and fauna and genetic material, that's all kind of been mixed together. But
once we remember who we are,
in Isomer Protocol, sorry?
Yeah, once we remember who we are, and that's happening right now as we speak, we're going to be a bigger threat than ever. And keeping us down is the name of the game on planet Earth, and keeping people from finding out who they really are. We have an incredible history that goes back eons, and actually the War of Worlds is being fought above our heads and we're being boots on the ground for aliens who are actually war makers long before we ever hit the scene. So these are things that are important to remember.
Well, I do tell the Sands of Time manuscripts. The Sands of Time disclosure, I guess you could say, does tell a little bit of a different story in regards to, for example, when Eisenhower supposedly, there's a whole big story obviously about how Eisenhower first met the aliens in 1953 in February, and that it was all about, oh well, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we'll help you ascend and we'll give you technology, blah blah blah. Well, Isomer Protocol says nothing like that happened. That they basically showed up at Muroc Air Force Base, that they shot down a couple of our planes, and they said, you're going to bring your leader to us here right now. And then what they were pissed off about was that the National Security Agency, using German technology and stuff that they got from the Roswell crash, that they'd landed on the moon in January of '53. And that's why the aliens showed up. It didn't have to do with anything else. I mean, the cover story was, oh, stop your atomic testing. It's ripping holes in the time-space continuum. It's actually knocking your planet out of its orbit, which is true. But that was the whole thing. They were like, we don't want you going on the moon and infecting the universe. Now, we have a base on the moon. I can't confirm any of the Martian stuff because I still think that I think that there's somebody else there that really doesn't want us there. I know you have people talking about jump rooms to the moon and all this other stuff, but they discount things like the Russian Phobos probes, where 3 of them were destroyed. And Marina Popovich was the one that came with the photos that showed this huge tubular mothership basically turning towards it, and with the camera going the whole time, eating the Russian Phobos probe. I have done remote viewings. I did it in a Japanese magazine, but I did remote viewings of Mars, where they asked me about a dozen remote viewing questions that were not front loaded. They were like, okay, 4852 Aqua or 5777 Gamma. Those were their questions, and then I hit every single one of these questions. They wanted to know what happened to these probes, and it was funny because the question was just show us 2832 Alpha, and I saw what looked like this big museum, this underground hangar, where they had these probes in the hangars, and the Japanese were really amazed at that, because their question was the blind question was, what happened to the probes. Right. It was fun though, because I did a whole thing where they projected me to the Sedona site and then moved me back in time like 4 million years, and the whole place was very brightly colored and civilization and all that. But I do still think there's possibly something or someone else up there that's not real happy with us running around. But we do have a base. We do have a base on the moon, at the North Pole of the moon, called Cape Malabar Radio, and that's described in the third book of Sands Time. That's why you have to get all 3 books. Okay, any questions from the audience?
Actually, there are some more. So someone wants to know what you think about Stephen Greer and what he's doing. That's
I don't want to bash anybody professionally. I was embarrassed by Mr. Greer when I took him to Unsolved Mysteries. I took him to Unsolved Mysteries and pitched him to Unsolved Mysteries, and I just tell the story because it's the truth. He showed us a piece of video. He showed us a piece of video that turned out he didn't really say anything while he was showing it to us, but my producers, John Cosgrove and Terry Muir, got really mad because it was actually video. I can't say Greer was actually presenting it as anything, but he was presenting groups of video where he was saying that he was responsible for actually bringing in extraterrestrials. And here's the challenge. The challenge is that here's a statistical thing that you might find interesting. We took all the information on UFO sightings in North and South America. We took all the statistical information, ran it through some computers, and you may find this of interest. You find that in the Northern Hemisphere, the majority of UFO sightings, strangely enough, happen from between about the 1st of February until about May 15th. So it's kind of, winter into spring. And they spike. There's something like 80% of the sightings that, strangely enough, happen on Wednesday nights. So if you go to the Southern Hemisphere, it's the opposite. So it's not their winter into spring. It's the opposite, but it's still the Wednesday night phenomenon. So Greer, in my opinion, had gone to places like Gulf Breeze or Area 51 or Marfa or whatever, and to places where there were already UFO waves and sightings. And then he does his meditations and calls them in, and then puts the camera in the sky and says, "Oh, look, I called them in and I did this, that, and the other thing." In the case of my taking him to Unsolved Mysteries, which, look, I was trying to promote him and trying to promote what he was doing, but I took him to Unsolved Mysteries, and he showed us a piece of footage of the landed Coos Bay, Ontario, in Canada UFO. And people, my producers start jumping up and down saying, "You can't be showing this. We own this footage. We're doing an investigation now," which was called The Guardian, about this guy Guardian who shot this footage. You can't be showing this to people. Now, in all fairness, he did stop showing it, but it just made me look like an idiot. And that's, again, I'm sure he's a nice guy, and it was just one of those things where I was just really mad that he was showing us footage that we owned at Unsolved when I was trying to give him a break and trying to get him on Unsolved Mysteries.
Okay, someone is asking, do you think Antarctic situation has anything to do with the black goo?
Don't really know much about it. Can't really answer it.
Okay.
There's obviously, it's kind of weird because if you'll notice, the black goo was featured in X-Files. Right. X-Files, by the way, is getting picked up for another 10 episodes, which I think is kind of cool. But it does seem that the black goo seems to be nanotechnology of some kind of like liquid. We're developing it now.
Artificial intelligence. The Monsanto scientist's death, over 25. There's actually a lot more than 25 who died. The Falklands Wars has to do with it. The Gulf spill in the Gulf. that has to do with it. It was eating the bottoms of the boats. I have lots of shows on my channel with people. David Griffin was one of the people who really investigated this. Miles Johnston. There are a lot other whistleblowers that I got back channel information from them on the story. So it is on my channel if you want to do some searches, and certainly look for those individuals. Someone is asking about disclosure about Antarctica. I guess they must have joined us late.
One other thing about that, remember when they started developing this nanotechnology, the fear is that it was going to get out of the box somehow, and that if it was self-replicating and it got out of the box as this goo or oil that could become, whatever it is. I remember reading the early articles of this, of people saying, look, if this stuff gets loose, that this is exactly the kind of thing that it would do, that it could replicate and possibly just, take over the world. And that was that was guys like Kurzweil, who were talking about this, saying, if this nanotechnology or this goo, whatever gets out, then.
Yeah, Michael Crichton wrote a book called Prey.
Yeah, it's all there. It's all, it's been in the science fiction realm for quite some time. So
okay, like I said, somebody's asking about Antarctica. They must have joined us late. David Morton has just given us a whole rundown on his take on what is going down in Antarctica. So you need to go back and listen to this. As soon as we end the show, it'll be back up on YouTube. You can watch it from the beginning and get the information there. And Sean is doing a special show to sort of elaborate on what he's talking about here about Antarctica. And that's this weekend, the 17th of June. What time's the show?
It's 12 to 3. It's 12 o'clock Pacific or 3 o'clock Eastern time. But it's 12 o'clock Pacific, and it's a 3-camera, it's a whole big video deal. And it's Lorraine Fenton and I are working on it, but it's liverevelations.com. And once again, let me go in to please help with Melissa's health, because I'm her primary caregiver now. But it's GoFundMe.com/care4 FOR Melissa. So anybody that would care to donate, it goes to a great cause. It goes directly to helping, somebody that doesn't deserve the hand she's been dealt. So there's that. What else is fun to talk about? Okay, let me throw one other kind of interesting doomsday scenario at you. We're going to be going into this, and I'll show you the charts on it and all that on the liverevelations.com. Okay, Madame Blavatsky. We all know who Madame Blavatsky is, yes?
Yes.
Okay, Madame Blavatsky was a Russian psychic around the turn of the century. She was a contemporary of Einstein and Aleister Crowley and all that. Blavatsky made some really weird and sort of interesting prophetic predictions. And she talked about that the end times, the last of the great wars, would be the culling of animals and men across the planet, the biblical prophecies coming true. And she talked about a Death Star, that a Death Star would appear in the sky when these things happen. Now, a lot of people think about a comet. A lot of people didn't think that there was just going to be some brand new star that was going to appear in the sky. Now, stay with me on this, because it's kind of interesting, because it directly relates to Trump and politics, and might be a good wrap-up point for all this. If you look at the astrological, and by the way, I'm doing readings for people now, and
Sean's an excellent astrologer. So anyone want to know about that? Sean's been doing astrology forever.
Yeah, forever. And my uncle's the astrologer for the Beatles, and like the personal assistant astrologer for George Harrison. And what I do is something also called astrocartography. And whereas nobody does this, but you take your birthday and you explode it across a chart of the world, a map of the world on the day that you're born. And it shows you good places to live, places to vacation, places for work, for power, for money, for love. And I do a complete astrological reading, which includes your natal chart and includes a transit, which is a personalized horoscope for 6 months. Then I do the astrocartography, where you actually get the maps of where all your positive lines are. I just did a reading yesterday for 2 women that I did their astrocartography, and they moved right onto a Pluto line, which is like a Pluto death line. And I looked at this and I said, okay, who's died? What's happened? And one woman had her son die, lost her house through a bankruptcy. I said, you got to get away from this line. Another woman was a midwife, and she was in a hospital where a woman and a baby died inexplicably in front of her, and there were all kinds of repercussions. And all this happened when she moved to this Pluto line. So there's places on the planet that you can go that will actually help you with your, with your health, with your with your love life, with your money, all that. So the astrocartography chart is fascinating. And I do a solar return, which is, if you give me your birthday, it's a little bit extra from the reading, but on your birthday, you can actually go on a quest to go to the place where the sun is the most powerful in your chart to absorb that energy. And I do then a 2-deck tarot reading, which is using the Rider deck and the Thoth deck as well to give you a fantastic reading. So it's about 90 minutes, and you get all these charts and all these reports and all these things. So I've been booking readings up like crazy. So give us a call. You call us actually at 310-318-1848. That's 310-318-1848. Go to the website, strangeuniverseradio.com, and you can book a reading. I'm booking up like 3 a day now, so it's it's just getting really busy. All right, so now here's what has to do with the astrology of this. The Pluto is the planet of death, transformation, regeneration, and Capricorn is the sign of banks, constitutions, governments, courts, anything that has to do with the skeleton, anything that has to do with what you hang the skin on, if you will. So Pluto was in Capricorn from 1766 until about approximately 1780. And it's very interesting because if you look at the degree of Pluto in Capricorn, which is when we signed the Declaration of Independence and officially broke away from England, you can trace that almost to the day of the election of Donald Trump as president, as the revolutionary voice of the people speaking, say that we're tired of the Clinton, Bush, Obama crime syndicate. We're tired of the old way. Let's pick ourselves an actual American that talks about being proud about being an American and not some internationalist. So it's interesting that revolt or revolution happened almost exactly at the same point that we were signing the Declaration of Independence. So that's number one. Number two, the United States in the Sibley chart has Pluto at approximately 27 degrees Capricorn. So what's going to happen is when it hits that exact point in our chart, there's going to be destruction. There's going to be chaos. There's going to be, governments breaking apart. It's going to be basically an ending of, what we know of as the great federal enterprise, this huge corporation in the United States. And, okay, so here's where it gets weird, is that Pluto moves to 27 degrees Sagittarius in 2022. And what it then does is that it moves across it, and then it goes retrograde. And so it's like running us over with a truck, and then the truck backs up and runs over us again when it goes retrograde. Then it moves forward, runs over us again. Then it backs up, runs over us again. Then it actually moves all the way forward into Aquarius for about 8 months, and we get the moon in the 7th house, Jupiter aligns with Mars, and the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Then it backs up again into Capricorn, and last but not least, finally moves forward. And you can literally say that the new age of Aquarius will actually begin when Pluto moves into Aquarius on Christmas. This is Christmas Eve, December 24th of 2024. Now, here's one more weird thing. In being an expert on just prophecies in general, and just going through a perusal of Madame Blavatsky again, and always wondering about what the hell is this Death Star she's talking about. It turns out that in 1738, you had 2 huge stars collide. And the light from that collision is finally going to hit Earth, not kidding, June 1st of 2022. And Blavatsky also talked about the symbol of the swan being particularly luciferic, because the swan it's beautiful, but it's vain. It's very, if you've ever been attacked by a swan, I think I was golfing once and I had a swan chase me around the golf course. But this Death Star that culls men and animals, that happens, it's going to go on all through the summer of June 1st, from June 1st all through the summer of 2022, at the same time that Pluto is hitting the death grip period in the chart of the United States. And it just so happens to be on the wing of the constellation of Cygnus, the Swan. So everything Blavatsky had told us about the connection with the Swan, about this new star, about the Death Star, about all that stuff, is going to happen in 2022. And this is when I had been projecting that we may just start, or the opening salvo of what might be a war with China. So, whether or not Trump is president by then, he's 70 years old. So, I mean, if he does finish his term, he'll be 78, which would be, really old. So, I'm presuming that you know, he might be done with this by 2024, or by 2020. So we'll see. I'm just saying that this chaos is coming in the next decade. And let me talk about one other thing too that I think is okay. Go ahead.
No, fascinating. Continue.
Okay, one last thing is that 3 years ago, this has to do with. By the way, let me just rattle off a couple of predictions here. I wasn't a Johnny-come-lately to the party. A year ago, I told people that Trump would be president of the United States, that no matter what happened, that Hillary would never be president of the United States. So it didn't matter who went up against her, that it would not be her. And I've been saying for 16 years that she would never be president. Matter of fact, they made her a deal. The Bilderbergers made her a deal and said that they would, if she stepped down and let Obama be president, that they would actually guarantee the political career of Chelsea Clinton. And I talked about that, not as a prediction, but what the Bilderbergers were saying. And now Chelsea Clinton's talking about a run for Congress in New York, and they'll eventually hand her the New York Senate seat. And, you know, who knows? If you've met her, she's a little dippy. She's not exactly the sharpest knife in the box. She's about 10 clowns short of a circus car. But, her belt doesn't go through all the loops, in other words. But, what do you expect when she's Webster Hubbell's kid? But that's another thing. So so with the election of Trump, so I predicted that Trump would be president of the United States. I then said the stock market would go to 20,000. It did. And by the way, the next level for the market is going to be 28,000. So that's going to be the next. So it's just going to, and it keeps going up. I also said years ago that if the internet was the internal combustion engine of the 21st century, that some kind of photonic currency was going to be the fuel that was going to make it run. Well, 2 years ago, I was at or 3 years ago, I'm sorry, I was at the New Living Expo up in San Francisco, and I gave this whole presentation on Bitcoin, and nobody knew what I was talking about. They're like, "Oh, you mean that stupid thing? It's like all some computer currency and all that." And I said, "Yeah." And Bitcoin was $32 at that time, and as of today, Bitcoin is almost 3,000. So there's two other things to get into right now. There's something called Ethereum, and there's something else called Litecoin. And then Goldman Sachs is working on a patent so that they can do their own electronic cryptocurrency. So in essence, Goldman Sachs can print money on its own. They don't have to borrow it from their buddies. Well, they don't even borrow it. The Federal Reserve just gives them trillions of dollars. The Federal Reserve printed $15 trillion, gave $5 trillion of it to the European Bank, gave another $5 to the Chinese, gave like $2 million of it to the Queen to get more fruit for her hat. And the rest of it, like $3 trillion, went to their buddies at Goldman Sachs. And Ron Paul asked Ben Bernanke, "How can you just do that?" He says, "It's our money. We can do whatever we want with it. It's private currency. It's not our problem. You use it for money in the United States." So it's interesting that anyway. So there's still some opportunities to get into Ethereum, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and part of how I knew this is where things were going is that back in 2006, I interviewed Janet Yellen, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve for San Francisco at that time, and who's now, of course, the Federal Reserve chairman. And I asked her point blank, I said, "Okay, what's the debt of the United States?" She said it was $8 trillion. That was back in the good old days when Bush was running up the debt. Remember, Bush inherited a federal government that had a surplus and just decided to spend all the money to make sure that the banks could loan money. So it was $8 trillion. And I said, "Well, how does that have to be repaid?" And she said, "Well, in dollars." And I said, "You mean Federal Reserve notes?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, how many Federal Reserve notes or U.S. dollars are in circulation?" And she said, "About 750 billion. And I said, "Well, how are we supposed to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve of $8 trillion with only $750 of money to actually pay it?" And her exact words, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, was, "I don't know." And then she said, "I presume that we're going to go to some kind of photonic currency." And I said, "You mean so like blips of light?" She said, "Yes, some kind of electronic cashless currency or blips of light that will assist us in possibly covering that debt." Well, ta-da, here it is. So like I said, Bitcoin, you can still buy sections of Bitcoin, what are called Toshis. I just put my producer on Strange Universe Radio, Mr. Rowe, gave me like $42 in Ethereum, and it's already up to almost $70. And this was only like 3 weeks ago. So anyway, there are opportunities to get into it. So there's a website called Jaxx, JAXX, that will actually help you set up a wallet for Bitcoin. So I think it's
all right.
I think it's very good, much safer than the stock market.
That's interesting. Okay, thank you, Sean. We don't make predictions here, and we are not selling anything, but we appreciate Sean's knowledge, and I don't know, any kind of disclaimer you want to put on there, just so IRS, somebody doesn't come after you, whatever.
This is all of this and everything I've ever said. I'm completely insane, and it's for entertainment purposes only.
Okay, yeah.
So there you go. Clinically insane, and for entertainment purposes only. But now the government wants to prosecute you for thought crimes. So if you write them letters that they don't like, apparently that's some kind of conspiracy. So,
right.
So
okay,
there it is.
Good enough. Well, we've been going for quite a long time now. So in the interest of keeping people interested and coming back for more, I'm going to close this down. I'm going to thank everyone.
No, I want to break John Lear's record. I want to go for 5 hours. No, we got to break the record. Let's do.
You're on your way. It's nearly.
Bathroom.
I think we're going on 3 hours at this point. We started a little late, but maybe not. Anyway, so thank you so much, Sean. It's great to have you here. Everyone, please do help Melissa if you are interested. And we'll put a link on our front page for this, but a GoFundMe, which is Care for Melissa. And so it's GoFundMe.com, Care for Melissa. And
forward slash care for Melissa.
Okay, yes. And she's a lovely woman and wonderful wife to Sean. And so has also been very instrumental helping our sector for many, many years.
Yes.
And behind the scenes, and an unsung hero, or heroine. So thank you so much, Sean. Last minute,
thank you.
Send your live revelations, liverevelations.com is where you're going to be doing something this Saturday. And
Antarctic Revelations and other things. June 17th, 2017, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. LiveRevelations.com. Please once again go to GoFundMe.com/Care for Melissa, and to order the book Sands of Time. We finally have them back in stock, so you might want to order them right away.
And where do they go for that? Where do they go to buy your books?
They can go to strangeuniverseradio.com. And if you're really lazy, you can just go to Amazon.com and pull them up. Don't get fooled, because book one, the hard copy, is out there for sale for something like $2,800. So again, I'm not selling that book for $2,800. You get the paperback, volume 1, volume 2, and then volume 3, which is the Isomer Protocol. But you got to get them before we sell out, because every single time we run a printing of the book, we just got them back from the printers, from the publishers.
And do you have them as PDFs as well?
We have them as PDFs, and we also have them in dynamic voice audio, so you can actually just download them onto your computer.
Lovely.
And listen to all 3 books. Actually, all my books: Black Seraph, Dark Prophet, Veil of the Antichrist, Sands of Time 1 and 2, and then 3, Iceman Protocol. Every single one of them are audio books, so you can download them and listen to them on the go. Kerry, I love you so much. Thank you so much for your support and everything that's going on.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Love you too, Sean. All my love and our love to Melissa. Our thoughts, our prayers are with her, and she was on my mind today. So just let her know, please. And please take good care of all those lovely kitties, and blessings to you. Okay.
Yep. Thank you, sweetie. Talk to you soon.
All right. You take care. Wow, great to have you here. Wonderful. So, what I want to do here is let people know that, again, I'm doing a conference. It's coming up on the 24th and 25th of this month, which is a Saturday and Sunday. So if you're in the UK, I have been doing this conference now 2 or 3 years in a row. It's at High Elms Manor, a lovely couple that run the conference, facility, so to speak, helped me out. And the woman's name is Katrine. She's a lovely person. And we're also going to be going to an Indian restaurant as part of the whole conference to do, I think we'll be able to do a panel discussion at dinner. I think that will be the Saturday night. I don't have my schedule, but I think that's when it is. And it's all, you go to ufoacademy.com to buy tickets, and we sell out fast. So there's only probably a few tickets left anyway. They're very reasonable, ridiculously cheap, I have to say. And you get 5 or 6 speakers a day. We're going to try to do a Skywatch one of the nights. And it's a lovely place, a very intimate place to see speakers and to really talk to us and hang out with everyone. And it's a lot of fun. So I hope you can consider coming down if you're in the area of Watford, which is I think it's northern London area, north of London. So that's, you can look it up. It's all at ufoacademy.com, or go to projectcamelotportal.com and click on events. And so thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with a couple other interviews this week as soon as I get them organized and let you know what it is. I've just released a new interview with Michael Schratt, who is an aerospace historian. It just uploaded to YouTube. I have a very slow connection here, but it finally did. So you can go to projectcamelotportal.com or go to my YouTube channel, which you're on at the moment, and do subscribe so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video. You know, it's a great interview with Michael Schratt. He really goes into detail about what he calls Aerospace Alley, and what is in essence making up the sort of secret black project area of the aerospace community, and that leads into the secret space program. So that's just been released tonight. So thanks again for watching, and have a great day and a great night. All right. Thank you. Goodbye. Thanks.
For the Vatican. And I wrote two books, two novels actually, Black Seraph and another novel called The Dark Prophet, Veil of the Antichrist, that has to do with what would happen if the 12th Imam or this Messiah rose up and united all 1.7 billion Muslims against the West, and how we defeat him. And I thought this would be a great thing for him. So what seems to be happening in Antarctica, and like I said, you'll see all the physical evidence of this if you go on liverevelations.com, that it all begins in Mecca. And this is just the stuff that I've managed to piece together. It all starts in Mecca at some point, I think around September of last year, and there was a massive accident. They claimed that there was a stampede. Now, there have been stampedes. There have been radical Iranians who've caused all kinds of trouble and riots, and so there's been a lot of death around around Mecca in the Kaaba, as they call it, with the big black box, and it has a stone in it that looks like a meteor that everybody has to go around and actually touch this stone. Bottom line is that people don't understand that worship of these idols, and specifically the Kaaba, were going on for about 1,000 years before Muhammad even got there. Muhammad gets to this area of Mecca, which is around a historic area called the Zamzam well, and this was the well that sprang from the ground when Ishmael and his mother Hagar were driven out by Abraham. Because remember, Ishmael was the father of the Arab races, or the I don't know, whatever you call them, the Semitic people, was the firstborn son to which the birthright should go to, because Sarah was old, and Abraham boofed his maid Hagar, and then Sarah got pregnant, and so they kicked out Hagar. So she was going to die. Gabriel appears and says, "You're going to be the mother of a great race," and this well comes up, which saves her life, which is where Mecca is based. So there were relics that were brought to Mecca, over the course of over 1,000 years. If you had a god or an idol or something weird, you took it to Mecca. So Muhammad shows up in the 600s AD, and is wiping out all the idols and is wiping out all the graven images, and he's going to destroy everything. And suddenly something happens between him and the Kaaba stone, where it beams this energy of God force or something into his head. Now, John Keel, one of my favorite authors who did Mothman Prophecies and Disneyland of the Gods and Why UFOs, he had a really interesting theory. And his theory is that supercomputers that were left over from Atlantis were actually made of stone, were like things like the stones at Stonehenge, maybe the Kaaba stone, and then if you had the tools to properly access them, that you could access all this knowledge of time and space. So his theory is that these supercomputers would protect themselves by beaming a God force radiation that gave you sort of an orgiastic gates of heaven kind of experience. Which is what happened to Muhammad. And he then made his religion, which was all anti-idolatry, one of the biggest idolatrous religions in the world, where now everybody has to pray to the east, and they have to do it 5 times a day, and they have to I've approached Nassim Harriman a couple of times, who kind of gave me attitude. Really, it was very strange. I just said, "Look, take a look at this equation and tell me what you think." And Harriman said, "Well, I've come up with my own theory for the unified field." And I said, "Well, then you don't need me, I guess." But I've been begging every physicist I can get my hands on. Wait a minute, I'm gonna introduce you to some cuteness, but also stop this nonsense over here. Hold on.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh my God, Darlene. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any extra ones? I might like to get one. My cat could use some company. Unbelievable. Yeah.
There's the
Norwegian forest cats. Beautiful. They raise them. Okay. Thank you very much, Sean. That was charming.
Sorry about that. That was a black Norwegian forest cat. It's like the first all black Norwegian forest cat in the United States in like 20 years. So
yeah, awesome.
And of course you are a Norwegian forest cat fan. You have a lovely Norwegian forest cat.
That's right. No, I was saying, I don't think you could hear me, but I was saying I want one. I want one of your kittens. Well, yeah. Anyway,
for sale.
Yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to do, Sean, is we're here to get an update from you, and love to hear what you have to say. So you want to start with Antarctica? Where do you want to start?
Okay, we have some great stuff happening. We're going to have actually a live event, which is going to be liverevelations.com, and that's going to be happening from 12 to 12 Pacific time this Saturday, actually 6/17. It's going to be a 3-camera in-studio thing that's going to present all this information. There's been all kinds of talk about what's been happening in Antarctica. It's interesting that it's coming to the fore now. But if you tune in on liverevelations.com from 12 to 3 Pacific Daylight Time. It's going to be a 3-camera presentation. It's going to be a whole big deal, and I'm going to present a lot of the physical evidence and the proof and photographs of what I believe are what they're calling themselves the planetary guardians of what's happening in the center of Antarctica. And it's if you put all the pieces together and taking all of this out of the mainstream media, of all these strange things that are going on around Antarctica, certainly including very strange visits there. Buzz Aldrin by, obviously, well, John Kerry, the Secretary of State, who, by the way, is our highest diplomat, who was there on the election day. You would think there would be better places for Kerry to be on election day. And quite possibly Barack Obama, because Obama went all the way down to Argentina and Patagonia, and there are many people that believe that he took a kind of a top secret day to also go to Antarctica. And it really does read like the next Indiana Jones movie. I mean, it could quite literally be the next Indiana Jones movie. I was thinking about putting all this together and maybe writing some kind of novel about it. I have a character I created named Father Dominic Lindquist, who works as a spy and an assassin for the... I
mean, just a tiny bit late here, so I just thought I'd come online and say hi to everyone and see how everyone's doing. We have people in the chat room already, so just thought I'd say hello. And also want to give you an update. I'm here in the UK, as some people may know, and I'm here I just did a tour of the ancient sites with Maria Wheatley. We're going to release a short video of that sort of journey, which was quite fascinating, and went to a lot of ancient sites, stone circles, Stonehenge, etc., and really got the energies, which was amazing. And that is a way to jumpstart your DNA, to give yourself an activation, as well as to bring your light to these various ley lines, and some of which are connected with what we call stargates. And there's a major war over the stargates on the planet right now. So this is very crucial. And Stonehenge is one of the sort of crucial places that we went. And I can tell you that was quite fascinating, intense energy. And we were there at night and got to really be close to the stones, etc. They do have guards and they won't let you touch them. The only time you can go touch the stones is during the summer solstice, which is actually coming up on the 21st of June. And here is Sean. So I'm going to see if we can get him online here. Hi, Sean.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Actually, we're already online.
Nice. Okay.
So it's great to have you here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw I have a poster to identify the show, so I'll actually see if I can get that on there. Okay, no, that didn't work. And then I'll bring you on. Everyone, I think, is familiar with Sean David Morton. He has a regular show, I think it's days, 3 p.m. Pacific time, if I understand correctly, for a couple hours every day. I think you're still doing every day. Hey, Sean?
Yes, Monday through Friday. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, you're a little bit far away. Maybe turn up your volume maybe a little bit. Yeah, I'm being told that would be
testing
good.
Once, testing, yes.
Okay.
Testing, can you hear me now?
I can. Okay, and so what I'm going to do here is also bring you on the screen, and we'll see what the chat is saying about, your sound and all of that. So we'll try to get some feedback from them. And I'll turn my sound up here as well to see if that helps. And hopefully we won't get any feedback or weird things going on. Okay, so there you are, Sean. You're live and in color. And I'm actually turning my camera off on your end so that my camera is dedicated to the YouTube. So that helps the broadband situation. All right, so
all right, let me do one thing. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem. So while Sean is actually, he got the time wrong. It's kind of easy to do because I'm in England and he's in California. And so I don't know, the mentality of Californians. No, just kidding. So Well, I am one, but I am sort of this world traveler at the moment. Now I'm doing a conference.
You're a citizen of the planet, Kerry.
Absolutely, and aren't we all? So at the moment, Sean, say hello to the audience.
Hello, audience. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us on Kerry's Fantastico.
And Sean, it's lovely to have you. Why don't we give you a short introduction for people that will watch this who have, I know it's hard to believe, might never have heard of you. It's very, very unusual state of being, but you never know.
Oh, okay.
Very brief.
Hi, Sean David Morton, TV producer, film director, writer, author, radio talk show host, general all-around media communications guy. Graduated from USC with degrees in performing arts and political science. Went to Stanford for a trimester in the summer. Attended the Oxford Astrological School for astrology at Exeter. Let me see, what else? I just between myself and Art Bell with a database of contactees, abductees, scientists, researchers. We built Coast to Coast AM into one of the #1 radio shows in the world with over close to 26 million listeners. And that so I was the #1 guest on Coast to Coast AM. I published the Delphi Associates newsletter for 17 years, actually from 93 until about 2009. And then the internet kind of killed everything. Since then I've been doing Strange Universe. Okay, right. Strange Universe Radio on freedomslips.com Monday through Friday. I've been doing that, I think, for like the last 5 years. So there we go.
Oh, okay, great. And really a brilliant guy, so knowledgeable on so many topics, and a writer of these wonderful books. Why don't you tell a little bit about the books?
Okay, Sense of Time, Volume 1, 2, and 3. We have the books back in stock finally. So you can go to the website, strangeuniverseradio.com, or you can go to Amazon. Don't be fooled on Amazon, because the original hardcover collector's edition that I put up is for sale on Amazon or eBay or something for something like $2,600. So the books don't cost that much. We have paperback copies of the books, but it was the pinnacle of all the stuff that I was doing and all the research over 30 years or so. Ever since I started going on Coast to Coast AM back in 1991 with Art Bell, and doing my investigations into Area 51, making it an international story, and eventually becoming the movie Independence Day, et cetera, et cetera. There was a man that started contacting me, and he just started calling me on the phone and say, "I'm just a friend and listener, but I have information from the inside." And over the course of the year, he met me at conferences and called me on the phone and just kind of guided me in a direction of giving me insider information. The last I heard from him, actually, he was at the Barack Obama inauguration, and he called me laughing on the phone because I had predicted that Obama would mess up the oath of office, and that he couldn't take the oath as it's written in the Constitution because he wasn't a U.S. citizen. And of course, he fixed that later by stacking the Supreme Court, making a deal with John Roberts and all that. And then I got a call from some very scary lawyers in Century City, who said, I have kittens with the blinds here. Hold on. Hey, you. Stop it. Who told me that, look, here are these journals that were written by this man of his personal life story, and as long as you don't use his name, because he still has a wife and 2 children that are still, I guess, alive, they told me he moved on, which is very weird. They never actually used the word dead, died, funeral, whatever else. He just moved on, like he disappeared. So, but then I began to read the books, or should I say read the journals, which I then transposed into the action novel that's, the 5-star rated. There's like 1,000 5-star reviews up on Amazon as being the best book, and I guess you would call the truth. I don't even know what you call it. The truth, dark world, dark government, black world agenda. And that's what became the book at the same time. And I began to realize it was his personal quest through his father literally disappearing into the time stream, and then him becoming involved with all these various projects to find out what happened to his dad. And, moving forward, it reveals everything about the Montauk Project, the complete dossier on the USS Eldridge and the Philadelphia experiment, the the internal workings of what happened during the Dulce Wars, the multiple conflicts that happened in the top secret base in Dulce, New Mexico. And it goes on to really talk about the development of teleportation and time travel. So and how it's possible and what the mechanics of it are. The third book in the series, ISO Protocol, takes place about years after the first two books and has a lot to do with humanity being isolated to this planet. That there are certain galactic beings out there that just didn't want us moving out into space because they considered us kind of a virus, and it's how we broke the chains of that in about 2006. So anyway, that's what Sands of Time Volume 1, 2, and then Volume 3, which is the Iceberg Protocol. That's what those are about. So thank you for letting me talk about them.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've read all of them, I believe, and enjoy them very much, and think it's really great. You know, it's great information. We're talking about, in essence, whistleblower testimony practically put into novel form and done very well by Sean. Let me say that.
Thank you.
And I think you're trying to get it.
Too is that after I wrote the books, I noticed that all this other information, like Phil Schneider, who was one of the mole men that was digging the tunnels under Dulce, and Bob Lazar, and you know, people that have read the books, and they come in audio as well. So if your folks don't have time to actually read the books, we have audio versions of all the books as well in dynamic audio. But you'll find that the width and breadth of the entire field of UFO phenomena, you know, dark world, black projects, government, all intersects with these books. And there's people that have read these books 2, 3, 4 times and just pull information out of it. I've been trying for years to get a physicist to take a look at some of the mathematical equations in the book that I don't understand, because you know, the manuscript claims to actually give us the mathematical formulas for unified field theory. And you know, I've